we are going to get started. So thank you to everyone who is here tonight. And if you're watching this on YouTube, thanks for watching. I hope that this is really helpful to you in learning all about careers in STEM and how to take one step towards that career through an internship through Saturday Academy. So I am going to be talking all about our program, the Apprenticeships in Science and Engineering. And I'll start by going through the details of the program, but then I will be introducing some alums that we have with us here and doing a panel style discussion of what the internship meant to them. And then I will be talking about how to apply for the program. So let's jump right in. And if you have questions along the way and you're here in Zoom, you can put them in the chat and I will address them as they come through. Or I may just say, okay, we're going to answer that question later in the talk. All right. So first, I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Allison Fritts-Penniman, and I am actually a marine biologist in addition to being a program coordinator for Saturday Academy. So I went through undergrad and grad school with the goal of becoming a conservation biologist, and I studied evolution of sea slugs that live on coral reefs for my PhD. And I'm telling you that because I didn't grow up in the Oregon area, so I didn't have this type of program when I was in high school, but I did have a couple similar experiences that made a big difference when it came to pursuing that PhD. And the first is that I had a job during high school as at a nature center that was similar in the types of things that I was doing that this type of internship can offer. And then after college, I had an internship in a molecular biology lab. And so that was my first time ever working with DNA. But some of our internships for high school students give you that experience a lot earlier in your life. And I can only imagine how that might have affected my path. So now I work for Saturday Academy, trying to bring opportunities to students like you. So I love doing this, but I have that kind of experience of going through the STEM career as well. Okay, so the ACE program is all about providing students a meaningful career experience before college. So this is, we create these internships in professional settings that offer a lot more to students than the classroom experience does when you're in school. And so most of our students come out of the program with a better idea of what it means to be a professional and go on to college with a better understanding of what they want to major in. And it's often in the field that their internship was in. We do this through these positions where people get real world work experience and get to know a mentor one-on-one. And so this picture is one of our interns who said that their mentor has helped shape the way I see myself in the STEM community. So over the years, we've offered internships in a lot of different fields, and this list is showing those that we had in 2022. So as you can see, there's a lot of different options. We're really trying to expand out beyond just the traditional science and engineering style research positions. And so it's a great idea to browse the internship catalog that we have on our website, which I will be showing you a little bit later. And just start by thinking about your interests, your passions, and which types of positions you could see yourself spending the summer, devoting your summer to. It's also a good idea to think a little bit about which positions you think are going to be more competitive and popular. So because you choose 3 to apply to. And so the more people who apply to any given position, the more applicants the mentor has to choose from, and it does make those positions a little bit more competitive. I will say that the medical science positions do tend to be up there, just as a tip, but it really depends on how many positions we have in the different disciplines, which you can tell by looking at the catalog. All right, so just as an example, one of our internships from last year was, which is coming back this year, is actually in the Corvallis area at Oregon State University. It is working with materials science in a lab that studies a lot of different ways to kind of transform waste into new products, or to use waste in unique ways, or create products that are really useful, using waste. So one example is Molly's project, who's shown here. She worked in a project turning waste plastic into fuel, which is something we really need, and left the internship saying that it was 100% sure what she wants to go into, and that polymers is now what she wants to study in college. Even though it was sometimes really gross doing this work in the lab, it was still really fun, and she felt like she was working towards something important. So this is a good example of an internship that reinforced what Molly wanted to do and gave a more specific target for what she wanted to study in college. So that's helpful if you kind of already have an idea what you want to do, but that's not required. You might have just a lot of different ideas in your mind about potential careers, and this is one way to try something out. You're not committing your whole life, you're just committing one summer to it, and you can see if it's a good fit for you. And it's also good to keep in mind that it's totally fine to change your mind. We had one intern, Julia, this past year, who pointed out that just doing this internship it shifted her perspective on what her life journey should look like. She said, I feel a lot less stressed about finding the perfect career fit for me, and instead trust that each decision I make will take me closer to where I want to be, regardless of if each choice is perfect. And I relate a lot to that as well, because you make different choices throughout your life, and it brings you to where you want to be. And it's often hard to predict that when you're in high school. But you just got to trust your gut, trust what you're feeling that you want to do, and follow that instinct. Another example is a situation where students will come into the internship thinking they know really specifically what they want to study and work on, but the experience isn't quite what they thought it would be. So they end up shifting tracks and realizing a different direction is better for them. So for example, Alex did an internship at IBM, and his mentor told us this at the end of the summer. The internship helped focus Alex's future goals. He's not as interested in the software aspect of computer science, but is now interested in looking into computer hardware or engineering. So still within the world of computer science, but is a really different approach to working with computers. So that's one example where this experience can help you focus what you want to do within this really broad category, such as computer science. So what exactly interns do during their summer varies a lot depending on the position, but they're all in professional environments with mentors at the top of their fields, and they usually will work either one-on-one with that mentor, or they'll work with other staff members, maybe graduate students who are working on similar projects. The day-to-day can really vary, but it can include field work or lab experiments to collect data, could be working on algorithms or programming, or solving problems such as maybe the company you're working with has this certain issue that consumers or product users keep coming up against, and they'll set you to coming up with solutions for that problem. Sometimes the end product could be writing a proposal for a way to solve that problem, or a way to make a change at the company or in the lab that you're working in. The one thing that all internships have in common is that everyone does a presentation at the symposium in August. And so that is the culminating event where interns will share about their experience, their project, and the audience consists of other ACE interns, the mentors, sometimes parents, family, friends. And this year it is going to continue to be virtual, just because we found that it's a lot more accessible that way. More people can attend than would be able to come if it were in person. And if doing a big presentation like that makes you nervous, don't worry. We have a lot of resources throughout the summer to help you prepare, and everyone's, in the same position of doing this presentation. So you've got your peers to help you and to lean on along the way. All right, so the program is open for students who are currently in 9th through 11th grade, and you need to have an interest in STEM fields. Of course, that's kind of the theme of the program. We do have some that are more on the art side of the world, though, so it is important to look at the position descriptions in our internship catalog and look for aspects of the position that really interest you, which might not always be just the hard science side of things. The geographic range we're serving is Oregon and Southwest Washington, but we do have some virtual positions. We are going to be having one in-person event this summer. So we will actually be having a 50-mile radius policy for any position that you apply to. So you can't, even if it's a virtual position, we want to serve local students who live within 50 miles of the internship organization. Some positions have their own eligibility or requirements, and so it's really important to look at that on our internship catalog. But the program as a whole is very open. There's not a lot of requirements. A big thing to consider as you're deciding whether or not to apply is whether or not you have the time and availability to participate. So every intern is required to attend 3 events. That's the orientation, which will be an evening online in late May, and our Midsummer Conference, which will be in person in Portland in July 20th, and the Symposium, which I mentioned earlier, that will be online, and it's on August 10th. Besides that, you would be expected to work with your mentor for the equivalent of 8 weeks of full-time work. So from the adult perspective, that's 40 hours per week, and it adds up to 296 hours of work with a mentor. So the start time will be end of June after school gets out, and you'll have until August 25th to get those hours in. There are some ways, if you have summer commitments, sometimes those can be worked around. It just depends on the mentor specifically. So that would be something we would talk about when the matches are being made between applicants and mentors. Another thing to keep in mind is that you'll be responsible for your own transportation. So that's another thing to keep to think of when it comes to time that you have available and distance to the internship locations, for those of which have an in-person component. All right, and then some of the perks of our program. We've got workshops coming up, and I'm going to we'll share a registration link for workshops to help with the application, such as the cover letter or interviews, which might end up happening depending on the mentor. And those are just a really great opportunity to learn skills to help with any application, to be honest, but we are limiting them to students who are definitely applying to ACE. So you would need to make sure you have your application started before registering for one of those workshops. We have staff members at Saturday Academy that are fully devoted to working on ACE. And so we are always here to answer questions. Once you are in the program, we support you through the process. Before then, we are happy to answer questions about the application. And we also hire teachers over the summer, teachers and counselors, for the role that we call teacher monitors. And they will have a cohort within our internship cohort. So there might be, 80 or so interns, and a teacher monitor would take on 8 to 10 of you and be your first point of contact for any issues that come up, or just to help facilitate communication with your mentor if you're still getting used to talking with your mentor. And they'll also do actual site visits, either in person or online, depending on the type of internship. Then, like I mentioned, we have these events that we host for the program. So the orientation and the conferences, those are put on by Saturday Academy, and everyone comes no matter what host org you are interning at. And finally, we have a stipend, which this year is $1,100 for all interns. So that goes directly to the students. It's a payment for you to do what you want with. It helps to cover expenses such as transportation, food, that kind of thing during the summer. All right, and then one note about COVID, which is that we want everyone to be safe, and we also want everyone to be complying with the host organization's policies. So as Saturday Academy, we have our own policies for the in-person events we do, and then we expect interns to also follow any rules that their host organization has. And so we have everyone sign a waiver that they understand this when they start the program. All right, so that is my little spiel about how the program works. And now I'm really excited to introduce our alums. I do see a question. Yes, I'll answer this question I see in the chat about the stipend, which is, how is the stipend dispersed? Is it weekly or at the end? And it is in 2 payments, one in the beginning, once you've certified that you've started the internship, and then the other is at the end after finishing. So it's half and half. So $550 in June, $550 in August or September, kind of after things are fully closed out. Good question. And that comes via a check. So, we mail those checks to your house. Other questions before we jump into our alum section? Okay, great. So I pulled these photos from back in the day when these 3 were interns. And I'm first going to just introduce who we've got, and then I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen just because I want to see our alums' faces more as they're talking and answering some questions that I have for them. So I'd like to welcome April Vasquez, Tony Munoz, and Kelsan Nima. April attended Woodburn High School and is now a 4th-year student at University of Oregon, majoring in multidisciplinary science on a pre-medicine track. She'll be applying to medical school in the summer to hopefully become a practicing physician in obstetrics and gynecology. And Tony Munoz attended Wilsonville High School and received his Bachelor's of Science degree, also at University of Oregon, where he majored in biology with minors in chemistry and psychology, and is a McNair Scholar alum. Currently, he's a first-year Ph.D. student in the neuroscience graduate program at Oregon Health and Science University, and plans to stay in academia and become a future principal investigator. And Kelsang Nima attended Grant High School and received his bachelor's and master's of engineering in civil engineering at Oregon State University. And he has been working at an engineering firm in Portland since 2020. So we've got 3 different career tracks here. And I'm going to stop sharing for now, and we're going to have a chat with all of you. So we can unpin my video and see each person's, maybe we can do speaker view or something as each person talks. I don't know what the best strategy is for recording. Awesome. So first, I'd like to hear from all of you just to tell us about what your ACE internship was and how you chose to apply to that position, since students are now in the process of deciding what to apply to.
Well, back when I was doing it in 2014, my interest was actually in nuclear engineering, and I applied as my internship was at that time was actually with the Bonneville Power Administration. So that was a position at Ross Substation in Vancouver, Washington. And it was I believe there was actually an internship at Reed College. They have a nuclear reactor there as well, but I didn't get that position, and I ended up getting one that was similar to it. It had to do with the energy grid. So I wound up at Bonneville Power Administration, and it was a fun internship. I learned a lot, and it was a good experience.
Cool. Thanks. And yes, we do still have positions at both the Reed Nuclear Reactor and at Bonneville for this upcoming summer. Tony, how about you?
Yeah, I was interested in neuroscience when I was in high school, and when looking through the ASC catalog back when I was a junior, I just looked for as many neuroscience related internships that I could find, and somehow picked 3. I think I remember there being 5, but I don't remember exactly. And they were all at OHSU positions, and being a part of those internships actually helped to continue to it helped continue to feed my passion for neuroscience, and so that's why I've stuck to studying it to this day.
Awesome. How about you, April?
Yeah, so my internship was at the Portland VA Health Center. When I applied, I didn't even know what internships were. So I just kind of went through and I did as many as I could to maximize my chances of getting in. And I do remember seeing one for alcohol use disorders in a behavioral neuroscience lab, which I found really interesting. And I applied to that one, which is the one that I ended up getting selected for. And that was studying circadian rhythms and therapies for alcohol use disorders.
Cool, thanks. All right, so my next question for each of you is, how did you feel that your internship or, doing this internship impacted you and, what you ended up going on? And we've heard a little bit about this already, but if you have anything to add about that, that would be great.
Yeah, I feel that the internship went pretty well. I mean, I think that the biggest benefit that a high school student would get from this experience is learning how to be a professional. And it's great if it contributes to the field that they end up going into, but many times it doesn't. I ended up going into civil engineering and focusing in structural, but really I think that the biggest, most applicable experience that they get is getting used to showing up to work, being professional in the workplace, just kind of hammering in the discipline. So I think in all those respects, it definitely went well.
Yeah, I love to hear that. We hear that a lot from a lot of interns and mentors.
Yeah, I can go next. I would say it had a very positive impact on me. It helped me learn how to form a mentor-mentee relationship, and that's something that I wouldn't have acknowledged back then, just because that idea just didn't really, it wasn't obvious to me. Because as you grow up, as you decide what career you want to do, you're going to be working with people who are older than you, people who have more experience, and you're going to meet people who are going to act as mentors in your life. And I still reach out to my ASC mentor from high school to this day. I won't go into the details of it, but I literally am working like 100 yards from where I used to work with her, where I am right now, which is just incredible. But I would say in other ways that it had a positive impact on me was showing me a career that I knew very little about. I knew nothing about research going into it, but I fell in love with the day-to-day job and grind of what people in research do. And I just ended up falling in love with that career and continued to pursue it. And it helped shape my future decisions, such as going to University of Oregon and looking for more research internships after I went there as well. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
So I have a similar experience to Tony's. I was fortunate enough to find an internship that kind of continued my curiosity for medicine. And I feel like I was fortunate enough that I was able to get a publication from the research that I did when I was in high school, because I was able to come back the following summer and continue on the project that I was on. So I feel like it had a really positive impact on me. Additionally, I was able to use that experience to apply to a different internship. So now I'm able to study fetal heart development because of the experience I had when I was younger. It's given me a lot of confidence, I think, to take to pursue opportunities that I necessarily probably wouldn't have if I hadn't taken that opportunity in high school.
Yeah, I love that. The confidence. I think once you've seen that you can do it, it makes you feel a lot more confident in applying to other things for sure. Cool. All right. So next question is, what was your biggest challenge in your internship? And what did you learn from facing that challenge? Because I do want to, highlight the fact that this is a challenging program and things come up that you might not be able to predict. And I think students should be prepared for that.
This is kind of a hard one for me. I believe it was pretty manageable, but when I think back upon it, I think about, everything that was introduced. I learned it, just sat down and was professional and kind of dealt with it. I don't really feel that it was a great challenge. I suppose the initial kind of week of getting used to just the routine may have been a challenge, but yeah, I think it was just I wouldn't say easy, but I wouldn't say too great of a challenge for me.
That's good. I mean, it sounds like you had the mentors like provided you what you needed to
Yes, they
get
did.
the job done, which is great. Yeah.
I would say for me, there'd be two things that I would describe as my biggest challenges. The first one would be time management skills. As I was doing the ASC internship, one thing that I knew going into it was that I already knew that I was on the varsity football team in my high school, and there were also mandatory and required football workouts for varsity in the morning and in the evening, and I couldn't go in the morning because of my schedule. And so my 4 out of the 5 days of like the work week looked like this. I would wake up, I'd be grateful for my parents to be able to give me a ride to where I worked, because it was at the Primary Research Center, which is located in like bordering
Beaverton.
Hillsborough and Beaverton. Yeah. And I'd work for 7 to 8 hours, and then I would take public transportation back to Wilsonville, which is where I lived. And then I wouldn't even have a half-hour break sometimes, just because of how finicky public transportation can be. And I would immediately have to go to a 2 to 4 hour football workout. And it was mentally and physically exhausting. And I look back on that and I wish I could have a conversation with my younger self, because I have no idea how I did that. I did not have that energy that I have today, not because I'm not excited about the work that I do. It's just that back then it was literally mentally draining myself trying to understand everything, and then physically draining myself at the end of the day. And so that was very hard trying to find a balance between my work and life. And I'm happy that I was able to balance everything, but it comes at a cost. And that's where the second challenge for me comes into play, where it was just how the nature of how difficult the material was. Because just because I was interested in neuroscience, I had a very limited understanding of the brain and the rest of the nervous system. And by no means was I like an expert or ahead of my class in terms of neuroscience, because I never took an official neuroscience class in high school. And I was just overwhelmed uh, with the difficulty of the information and concepts that I was being presented with, because my lab actually had to do with fetal alcohol disorders as well. And I just had a very hard time understanding it. And I was trying to read graduate student level research papers and not understanding a thing. And I had to really work hard with my mentor and work hard by myself to really understand the material. And so going into these internships, you should not be expected to know everything or even that much, or maybe you'll have some knowledge or experience. I went into that internship having taken AP biology and AP chemistry, but it's a lot of work, and it's okay not to understand everything, but with patience and with some grit, you'll get there.
Yeah, that's great advice. April?
Again, I feel like I had a really similar experience. I think some of the biggest challenges for me were the cultural and linguistic barrier. Spanish is my first language, English isn't. So I feel like trying to read those graduate level papers was the hardest thing that I had to overcome. I thought I had to know all of these terms, but fortunately I had a PI that was really good about walking me through what every article was trying to tell me, which was really nice. And then another thing for me was that I also needed to travel really far. So financially, it was kind of a hardship because I had to travel from Woodburn to Portland every day, which is like a 2-hour commute when there's a lot of traffic. And my mom was able to drive me, so I was fortunate for that. But it was really hard having to pay for those things. So the stipend really helped. And then I also had to work on weekends. So it was really hard managing my time, working 7 hours or 7 days a week, which is working all the time for 2 summers in a row was really difficult. But I feel like the experience was definitely worth it because it helped me in the long run in what I want to pursue, which is medicine. Another thing that I feel like was very big for me was the learning curve. I hadn't even taken biology at the time that I took my behavioral neuroscience internship. So you can only imagine how that went. But I feel like it helped me adjust in a way that I was able to learn how I learn. And that helped me in school too. So I feel like it was just really worth it for me.
Awesome. Yeah, sounds like you learned about yourself, which is something we haven't really talked about yet, but I think that's definitely true.
I'd like to
And
add,
yeah,
now that you guys have went, definitely learning the jargon and specific terminology of the actual source of the topics that you focus on was definitely a challenge for me as well. So thanks for reminding me of that. It was just to kind of get yourself up to speed on the top of the field is definitely a big challenge.
yeah. And I think it's cool that you all had mentors who could help you through that process, which is one thing I love about our ACE mentors. All right. How about a favorite memory from that summer in your internship? No, this was a while ago.
So, well, it's a pretty big facility at Ross Substation. So I'd say that a good memory was actually going and seeing the rest of the facility. It's pretty large. They have their own train tracks to deliver supplies. And actually going out into the switch yard was pretty fun. And I think that giving the symposium at the end of the program was a nice moment as well. Having to go and present and show what you've been working on the whole summer was nice.
Awesome.
My favorite memory, there's actually two. Uh, I think they're the most memorable ones. The first one is we had at the Primate Center, it's a very large campus, and there was a summer barbecue, and they have a volleyball court, and it's a really pretty area where there's this huge pond, and it was just very nice, and that was just very memorable. And so I think depending on what campus or wherever you're working, there's probably hopefully something similar to that, but I'm not sure. I guess it just depends. But I think another memory that it's more of a funny memory where it also helped me love this career even more is the sense of community that you can have with other researchers and people working in the same lab as you. And one day in the lab, I was talking with my other lab mates, and these are people who are all way older than me. And I told them how I had no idea who Biggie Smalls was. And so, in case anyone doesn't know, he's a rapper, hip hop rapper, and like one of the greatest of all time. And I had no idea who he was. And one of my mentors, he tells me, "You're gonna stop everything you're doing right now, and you're just gonna research him for the rest of the hour until you have to go home." And so that's what I did. And so that was really funny. And I gave them like a short little presentation on like everything I learned. And so that was a funny moment that I remember from back then.
I love that.
Okay, for me, I have two. Tony, you just reminded me of one funny one. The first one I think is getting to take my parents to see where I work. My PI made it a mission to get my parents up there for one day and just see all the work that I do in one day. And I felt like it was really nice because at the end she sat them down and was like, here's what our research is about, and here's what we do, and here's what she's looking at. And they were able to see all the facilities, which was really nice. Um, and then the second one is a funny one. I think so my PI hadn't bought a car because she just like hesitated to learn how to drive, and she just like didn't like it, but eventually she bought a car. And then one day, I think it was a Friday, she came in and she's like, I bought a car, I bought a car. Everybody, we're off early, but whoever wants to come with me, we can go drive my new car. And she just like took us on a ride throughout Portland, which is really cool.
That's cool. I like that. Yeah, your memories are, it's not just about like the work you're doing. It's kind of that fun aspect as well. Great. Okay, so my last question is really more about just you three and the, post high school life, since I want, everyone who watches this to get a little bit more insight about what it's like pursuing these career paths that you're on. So we've heard a little bit about this in the sense that, the ACE, at least especially I think for April and Tony, the ACE internship kind of like sent you in a certain direction or kept you on a certain direction that you had in mind. But how did you decide to, like choose the career path that you're on, either change focus or stick with it? And then what advice would you have for students who are interested in a similar career besides doing an ACE internship, obviously? But yeah, let's hear from Kelsang first, because I think you took the biggest kind of turn in terms of what you ended up doing. Oh, I think you're muted now.
Yeah. So I was always interested in the STEM field throughout my life. And I would say, so I actually did another program called ACE. It's architecture, construction, engineering. I did that after doing the ACE internship.
Yeah.
And it was a during school kind of sort of capstone-ish project for high school students to develop a project. And that really got me interested in civil and structural engineering. And so after my first term at OSU, I switched majors to that, partly because I was interested in it. And another big reason was that nuclear engineering isn't very accessible in the Northwest, and I want to stay in the Northwest. And pretty much anywhere you go, you're going to have a, civil engineering office to work at. So it just made a lot of sense to just pursue that option instead. And like I said at the beginning of this meeting, is that what I really took from that internship was, the discipline and the professionalism and learning how to talk with people and work on a schedule. And that really helped, applying not only in my current career, but also in my courseworks in college and in grad school. And advice I would give to some students that are applying is that really just keep, don't kind of get in your head that you have to do something. Really just kind of think about what you enjoy and pursue that option if it makes sense for you. And just view this internship as nothing more than it doesn't have to set you on a path. Just use it to kind of test the waters and develop your professionalism and your discipline. And if you like it, then and you want to pursue it, you can take that route, but also just keep an open mind throughout the process, I would say.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks. How about you too?
Yeah, to continue building off of that, I think there's three things that I want to say in terms of your career. Like people always talk about like traditional paths, but there's also non-traditional career paths. And so when it comes to picking an ASC internship, choose something that you think is interesting. And if you go through the internship and let's say, oh, I didn't enjoy certain aspects of it, there are still useful skills and techniques that you're going to learn and you're going to take that with you. Like, for example, I mentioned how to better manage my time. And so time management is a skill that I took with me and it was very useful, especially as I was managing my coursework load when I was an undergrad. And so you can pick an internship and you're still going to get a lot of interpersonal and technical skills out of it. And so that's really important. And I would say the most important thing that I've learned that I've had conversations with several mentors about is that regardless of whatever career you choose, that it's just as important to understand what you don't like as it is what you do like. Because if you understand what it is that you don't like, then you get to cross it off your list and you get to keep searching for what it is that you're really passionate about. And the other thing is knowing how to motivate yourself. And so I mentioned earlier the importance of mentor and mentee relationships. These are the people who are going to help guide you through your career. And at the end of the day, that's what they are. They're a guiding hand. But you need to learn how to figure out what motivates you. And regardless of whatever career you choose, that's going to take you farther than anything else. And so your mentors can't teach you how to motivate yourself. And so that's something that you need to learn. And if that's something that you have down, then you're going to go far, regardless of whatever career you choose. And then for me, just to sum up, like how I chose my career path, I just made baby steps, figuring out that research is what I really liked and cared about, which is why I continued to do it as an undergrad. And I would say I even chose a non-traditional path because a lot of people would go to graduate school immediately after undergrad, but what's becoming a lot more popular now are post-baccalaureate internships. And so I did a post-bac at OHSU after I finished University of Oregon. And that's actually what led me to staying at OHSU for their neuroscience Ph.D. graduate program. And so if it wasn't for that post-bac, I wouldn't be here right now. I would have taken a different path. And so it's okay to take a non-traditional path, but no matter what path you choose, it's all going to help you lead to wherever it was you were destined to go.
Yeah, thanks. All right, last but not least, again, April.
So a little bit of how I chose that I wanted to go into medicine was that I was kind of in and out of the hospital when I was really young with my mom because I was the only one who really spoke English in a medical setting. And so I kind of was building up on that when I was little. And then when this opportunity came along, or it came along because I joined a program called OHSU On Track when I was in high school. And there I met Susan Sugarman, which was, she was the lady who let me know that this was a thing that people did when looking to get into medicine, just to test the waters like you both did. And then when I applied, I was able to do this internship. I was able to come back. I got mentoring on not only research, but also how to apply to college, how to go about getting into the medical field. And then once I got into college, the pandemic hit. And that was really tough to navigate. So I wasn't able to do any internships, anything in the medical setting. But as we came back, I was able to start working at Planned Parenthood after being a scribe for a couple of months. I was also able to start doing research again. And then I feel like both of those experiences showed me that I did want to do medicine after all, more specifically looking at pregnant women and all the changes that they go through during pregnancy, which I find really fascinating. And yeah, to think it all started with the ASC internship. And I feel like my piece of advice would be to believe in yourself and take all the opportunities that you can. My dad always used to say the world is your oyster. And I live by that. So yeah, I feel like that's my biggest piece of advice.
Yeah, thank you. That reminds me, one of my mentors used to say that, you can't turn down an opportunity if you don't apply for it first. So, to always think like, even if you're not sure if you would get accepted or if it's something you really want to do, that, going after it and, pursuing it and just seeing if you do get it. Sometimes that little confidence boost you get from actually getting an opportunity, it makes you realize like, oh wait, I do really want to do this. Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Do you have any last thoughts that you want to share out with potential applicants before I get back into the application process? Once, going twice. All right. Oh, we've got some questions just in the chat. Kyle's asking if this info session will be the same as the one on Saturday. So yeah, Saturday Academy is hosting one on Saturday. This one's actually way better than that one. And you're lucky that you found out about this one because we have our alums here, which we won't on Saturday. So yeah, after this, you won't need to attend one of the regular Saturday Academy info sessions. Any questions specifically for our alums here before we move on about their paths? All right, well, if any come up, we can. Oh, we've got, okay. Tam is asking, what grade were you when you did your internship?
It was the summer after my junior year.
Same.
For me, it was the summer after my sophomore year.
Nice. Yeah, we definitely get students who are in, it's between 9th and 10th, 10th, 11th, or 11th and 12th. Ooh, we've got a question from our host here. Is there any support you wish you'd had that would have made the internship less challenging?
I would say that I had all the support I needed at my internship, definitely. So I can't really say.
That's great.
I think looking back on my internship and having multiple mentor-mentee relationships since then, I think things that I would have wished would have been different was having more one-on-one meetings with one of my mentors. And so I use the word mentor broadly, but in reality, I had multiple mentors besides my main lab host who invited me into the lab. And so I wish I would have had more weekly meetings with her, just to have check-in meetings and to check in my progress. But I think that type of stuff is hard because of availability and whatnot. But that's one thing I think I would change. And so if you get accepted to an ASC internship and you're uncertain how much one-on-one time you'll have with the main person hosting you, I think it's just a good idea to have conversations with them and just openly communicate what that relationship is going to look like.
Yeah.
I feel like I was pretty supported as well. I feel like I had everything that I needed. I feel like a little bit or something that could have been useful is being able to connect to other ASC interns and see how they were feeling about their internships that were in the same field. That would have probably been nice, but overall, I felt pretty well supported.
Yeah, that is a great point. We have been trying to figure out the best way to connect our participants across, geography and time and all of that, considering all the different host organizations. But at least the Midsummer Conference is a place where everyone will get to meet each other. All right. Well, thank you three so much for being here and answering my questions. We love to hear from our ACE alums and are excited for, those of you watching who are going to apply to become interns and alums yourself someday. Great. I'm going to now share about how to apply for the program. So I will go back to my screen share. And first, let's see. Get this back up. Okay, so first I'll go through the different components of the application. I want to highlight that the deadline is Friday, March 3rd, and that is a pretty strict deadline. I mean, when I say pretty strict, I mean there's no exceptions. So it's a strict deadline. So if you're going to apply, definitely put that in your calendar, set all the alarms to make sure that your materials are submitted by then. And the materials that we ask for are your base. It's all through a web application on our website, the Saturday Academy website, and involves basic contact information, your transcript of high school so far, 2 adult recommendations from people not related to you, and a cover letter or multiple cover letters, which I'll explain in a minute, and the preferred positions that you are applying to. So I'll go through these one by one with a little more detail. A transcript, it doesn't have to be official, but the easiest thing is to ask your school, one of your school counselors, to just give you the most up-to-date version of your transcript, which should show your name, your school, your grade, and your academic history so far in high school. So all the classes you've taken and the grades you got since you started high school. And if you've been to multiple schools, say you transferred, we would ask for both transcripts. The grades, we don't ask for this because there's any sort of grade expectations. It's more just to see what classes you've taken. And for some positions, the mentors do like to see that the applicants have taken biology already or taken physics. And this is the way that we can check that. When it comes to the recommendations, it is a great idea to make the decision now who you want to ask, and ask for their permission to put them as a recommender in the application. And they will have the same deadline as you to submit the recommendation form. So that's March 3rd. And some ideas for who to ask are teachers, counselors, coaches, someone else, anyone who knows your intellectual interests, your academic ability, your character. Maybe they're familiar with your skills. If, say you play in a sport and your coach knows that you're really dedicated, that you've got great time management skills, that you have shown self-motivation, those kind of things are important for an internship, even though it's not directly related to science. That said, it is good if at least one of your recommenders can speak more about your abilities that are directly related to the internship. So maybe a science teacher or math teacher, something like that, that relates to the internships you're applying for. But there's no real requirement about that. It's up to you who to ask. And once you have submitted their emails into the application, they'll get sent a link to a form to fill out. And after they submit the form, it will show up on your application dashboard that they've submitted it. So you can always double check, see, does it say sent or does it say submitted? And if they haven't submitted it yet, make sure to remind them to do so. All right, the cover letter is a really important part. Some might say the most important part of the application, because this is often where the mentor will start in terms of reviewing all the applicants to their positions. So it should say why you are applying, why you would be a good intern, what kind of skills and experience do you have already, and how will an internship impact your life? Do you have a personal connection to the career field you're interested in? And it will, how meaningful is this experience for you? I don't have time to go too much into how to write a good cover letter. So I'm just gonna recommend that you go, that you look at our cover letter workshop options, which I'm going to show you the dates that are available a little bit later, and I'll share a link for registration for those. Just a quick tip that has to do with the application platform. It's always a good idea to write cover letters in a word processor or somewhere that's going to save it outside the application platform. There's two reasons for that. One is that, our website server is busy. Sometimes it can glitch and, worst case scenario, you could lose what you've written. Second is that if this is your first time writing a cover letter, this is going to form the base of applications for other programs in the future that also ask for a cover letter or an essay. So it's just a great idea to save this somewhere where you can work on it again for other opportunities. I will say that there are two types of cover letter that the application asks for. And the general cover letter is required for everyone. That'll be the first cover letter box in the application. It should be more of a broad letter about why you're applying to the ACE program, and not mention any of the positions, the specific positions you're applying for, because this is a letter that by default will go out to the different mentors that you're applying for. And if you just have time to write one cover letter, make it a general letter, and that's great. But if you are feeling really passionate about a certain position, you can opt to write a letter that's targeted to that position. And if you do submit a position specific letter, it will replace the general letter, and the mentor will see this specific letter. So there's places in the application where you can put in these extra cover letters, but please read our instructions closely, which are in an application guide, which I'm going to show you where that can be found at the end of this meeting. Okay, so I will actually show you our website and how you can find the application now, because it's a little bit buried in our internship catalog, but we want you to explore the internship catalog first, so it makes sense. So rather than just go through slides on how to do this, I will just go over to this tab here and show you. So this is our homepage, SaturdayAcademy.org. And because our application is open now, the top banner here will direct you straight to our internship catalog. So you would go to there, and then you can, if you want, just browse all the different positions. They're listed. The host organization will be first, and then the title of the internship comes next. And then we have any requirements or prerequisites for a certain position. So you can see that some of them have a minimum age or require that you're a US citizen, but other ones don't have any minimum age or anything for citizenship. So pay attention to those requirements. Make sure that you meet the requirements for the specific positions you are applying to. Cool thing about our catalog is that you can filter it based on what you are interested in or where you live. So right now we have positions that are in Portland, Corvallis, and Beaverton. And so if you're in the Portland area, you most likely, almost definitely live within 50 miles of Beaverton and Portland locations, and you could apply for any of those. But you want to think about how you're going to get to the internship before you apply to it. And then we also have positions down in Corvallis, and so those are specifically for students who live in the Corvallis area. So let's see what comes up for if we put a Portland filter and a Beaverton. We'll just include Beaverton as well while we'll add it. Apply that filter. And then we're going to also filter by discipline. So if this were me, I would probably go in and I'd filter by biology and environmental science, because those are my favorite topics. Throw earth science in here too. And click apply. And so now I'm looking at just the positions that are tagged for those locations or disciplines. And I will pick one to look at. How about the Food Innovation Center, Food Microbiology intern? So I'll click on this one and it expands to show me the full position description. Just a little slow because of our website being slow sometimes. And so I would read this, I would say, okay, that looks cool. I meet the prerequisites that are listed here. And so I'm going to add this internship to my locker. And this is a temporary storage place as you're browsing. I will, if you've already applied, you would be logged into your account. I'm realizing I'm logged into my account, which is not ideal. So I'm just going to quickly show you what it looks like when you don't have an account yet. And we'll go straight to the food internship. Go back to where we were, add to locker. And then once you've added several internships to your locker, or, even if you just have one you're interested in, you would then go to your locker and then click apply for these internships. And this is where you would create your application. And so you'll need to fill out this whole basic info form to start. And once you click save and continue, it will create an account for you based on your email and password that you enter here. And so you'll be able to re-log in and work on the application more later. So the most important step is really just starting and creating that account and saving, keep continuing to save internships into your locker so that you remember what you want to apply to. All right. And then I will, since I've shown you how to start the application, I'm going to skip forward to my tips for getting selected. So here's my biggest tips. One is absolutely to make sure that you meet the deadline. You can't get selected if you don't submit in time. Second would be to keep track of whether your recommendations have been submitted and remind your recommenders to do so if they haven't yet. Third would be that if you really are passionate about a specific position, or maybe 3 different specific positions, you can choose up to 3 to apply to. then I do think it's a good idea to write those position-specific cover letters that really express why you're a good fit for those positions. Similar to applying to colleges or any other jobs, when the person reading the essay or the letter sees that you've really thought and put time into what they are involved in, it makes a difference in terms of them evaluating, who they want to move forward with in, maybe doing interviews, that kind of thing. So while it's not required to write those position-specific cover letters, it does seem to help. And if you want help with that, again, I highly recommend that you come to one of our cover letter workshops, which I will share the link to in a minute. I also recommend that besides asking us for help, that you have, ask a teacher maybe to review your cover letter or other parts of your application, just to get some feedback, make sure it's as competitive as you want it to be. And of course, always ask questions if you're not sure what the best strategy is, or if you're not sure about doing some part of the application. You can always reach out to me. I'll share my email at the end. But a lot of your questions might already be answered in our application guide. And so you can find that on our website. It is highlighted. It's in our Be an Intern section, but I believe it's also, it's linked on several places on our website, but the application guide is definitely a good place to start in terms of just making sure you're following the instructions correctly, which is the first way to make sure you get and have an eligible application. It looks like this. It also links to the Internship Catalog, and it has links for a cover letter writing guide and an interview skills guide. So interviews are something that mentors will occasionally do. It's not every mentor decides to conduct interviews, but a lot of them do. And so it's good to be prepared for what to expect in an interview. And so we've got our written guide online, and then we also have one interview skills workshop that you can register for using the same link as the cover letter workshop. Oh, thank you. In the chat is the link to the application guide. And the cover letter workshops, these are the dates that are coming up, and I am pasting the registration link in the chat. It is actually a different registration link than the one you would just get to on the public or through the website, because we have one extra workshop that we're only offering to students who come to us through other nonprofit partnerships. And so that's the Sunday, February 19th workshop. So in case the other ones fill up, we're making sure that we have that one reserved, so that students who are involved with MESA or a couple other nonprofits that we work with will have a chance to come to a workshop. So all of these, of course, are open for registration still for anyone. I will be, as they fill up, I'll be removing them from the options on the registration link form. But yeah, for now, we still have space in all of these. And just note that 3 of them are on Zoom. The other 2 are in person at University of Portland. So if you like having that in-person interaction with the instructor where they can give you direct feedback on, this, it's an interactive workshop where you'll actually be listing out your skills and the activities you've done and thinking about what things you want to write about in your cover letter, and maybe writing some practice sentences or paragraphs. So in person, you can get that feedback from the instructor directly, whereas virtually, you'll be doing similar activities, but they won't necessarily be looking at your writing directly. So there's perks to either one. All right. And so my last request or note for you is I would love if the two of you who are here as students, potential applicants, would just fill out this form, which I just put the link in the chat because I'd like to know what schools you go to and what your contact info is so that I can share other info with you about the program in the future. So that is helpful for us. And with that, I'm happy to take any other questions. And of course, also offer our email address. This is the program email that is where we field any questions about the program. And it's both me and our program director, Mara, who you might hear from there, but also happy to answer questions now. Give you a little bit to think. Oh, okay, we got one question. Is this open to current seniors? It's not current seniors because once you graduate, then you're no longer a high school student during the summer. But if you're going into your senior year, you're still eligible. So if you're, in 11th grade, you're going to be a senior. That's still within the range. Any other questions? All right, well, spread the word, share with your friends, and I hope to see some applicants coming from this session.